idea the amount of ignorant mess we're about to get into right now.
Sit your $5 ass down before I make you.
Hello and welcome to a brand new preview episode for Black on Black Cinema. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Micah.
Hey.
All right, guys, we're back. Just a little bit of inside baseball. Terrence would be back this week, but because he has such massive disdain for all of you, he decided that he would rather do anything else. No, but he is back. He's just a little bit busy this evening, just happenstance. So he will be on the next episode 180. So don't worry about that. You'll get to hear his shining voice. So episode 180 will be on the 1995 film Panther. This is a movie directed by Mario Van Peebles and Melvin Van Peebles, father and son team. I guess it was worked on by both of them, but directed solely by Mario Van Peebles. This is about the rise and fall of the Black Panther Party. This is interesting because this is the first sort of narrative film about the Black Panthers, right? So here's the thing. Normally we would say, hey, you can rent this, or you can, obviously you can go buy it, or if you already own it, right? To follow along with us. Here's the thing. You can't really find this movie anywhere, except on YouTube. When you search Panther full movie, it's the first thing that comes up. So this is about as easy to watch as you can get. Just search for it on YouTube. You can find it in its entirety. It's like 2 hours. But check it out. And we will talk about that in depth. Starring Kadeem Hardison, Bokeem Woodbine, Marcus Chong, Courtney B. Vance, which is really interesting because Courtney B. Vance plays Bobby Seale, which is interesting, and Marcus Chong is Huey P. Newton. Should just be interesting. Neither one of us have seen it. I think Terrence may have seen it, but it's certainly
Terrence probably has seen it. He sees pretty much anything.
Yeah, but I think he was saying it was a really long time since he's seen it. So it should be an interesting conversation to see how we've never done a Mario Van Peebles movie on here, so it'll be interesting. And by the way, this is based on a book by Melvin Van Peebles called Panther as well. So it should be interesting. I don't know what happened to Mario Van Peebles. He sort of fell off the face of the earth. Like, he was doing a lot of directing for a while and then just kind of like disappeared. So I don't know. And now that I think about it, wait, have we done anything by him?
I think we did one, but we scrapped it and it never aired.
Yes.
Sweetbacks.
Oh, no. He directed New Jack City. Yeah.
Oh, this is the second episode.
Yeah. Oops, I forgot. I always forget he directed. That's right. He was in it, but I often forget he directed it. So So check out Panther. Again, you can just search Panther full movie on YouTube and you can find it. All right. So the random topic this week is, I think, a pretty interesting one. This was posed by someone online. I'm not going to give their name or anything, but they posed an interesting question or sort of an interesting opinion. So I thought we would talk about it. The topic is an unintended consequence of integration is that there is now a generation, multiple generations if we're honest, of black folks who are woefully miseducated and out of touch with their own history and struggle. We have folks who lived in integrated settings, never learning about themselves and never seeing other people who had this knowledge. We had people disconnected from their faith traditions of our ancestors and culture and who have only ever experienced the white man's religion. As much as separated but equal is a failed project, I can't help but wonder if integration is also a failed project. There's a lot of folks who will get mad at what I just said and claim I want segregation. I don't want segregation. I'm just tired of living in a world where the amount of quote unquote freedom that I experience is proportional to the amount of my culture and identity that I'm willing to surrender to whiteness. That's not freedom. It's another form of slavery. I want real freedom. Look, I think that's really well written. And I think it poses an interesting series of questions and sort of opinions. What were your thoughts on this?
The first sentence is pretty much me, right? Like, I grew up in in a Jewish neighborhood transitioning into black. So they, it was like three of us on the block. And my parents made a concerted effort to kind of shield me away from the mistreatment that black people endure, because they didn't want me to grow up being a racist.
Right.
The second sentence is also me, right? Like I didn't really learn about a lot of this stuff until maybe college, because the high school we went to was more of a technical high school.
Right.
You know, they kind of beat that into us, and not necessarily social things.
Yeah. No. And we went to the same high school. That's why I'm saying this.
We have people Okay, now the third sentence in the last paragraph, or where I think that this opinion is not as smart as people might think it is. We have people disconnected from the faith traditions of our ancestors and culture, who have only experienced white man's religion. Religion is always an interesting topic.
Sure.
Yes, it's been used to subjugate and specifically black people to fool us into thinking that our place is underneath the heel of someone else. But all religion is, I'm not going to say all religion does that, because I don't know all religions, but I don't know. I see a lot of good in religion,
Sure.
through that religion, through the Christian religion, I guess is what they're, alluding to.
Sure.
That gave people strength and hope to fight, you know what I mean? To make it through day by day, right? Like, I know God, he got a plan, y'all, don't worry. Like, I know that's a cop out, but some people need to believe in something in order to keep going.
Sure.
Otherwise, most people, if you would have taken away religion from the slaves,
sure,
if they may not have anything to believe in, they may not think that there's any hope. So religion is subjective. It's weird. Then she gets to the separate but equal thing, and she says that it was a failed project, but questions whether or not integration is a failed project. And this is where I have a problem, right? Because one, you're doing something that I freaking hate, right? You're saying that this thing doesn't work, but the other thing doesn't work, and you don't pose even a hypothetical solution, right?
Right.
My hypothetical solution, I assume this person wants like homogeneity, or whatever the hell that word is.
Homogeneity.
Like for all of us to
homogeneity. I guess that's the word.
Homogeneity. That is it. But then you'll realize that doesn't work either, because it's not just race that separates people, right? Like, think about when you go to school, right? Like, how many some people have experienced it. It's been in movies, right? Like if a kid goes to school, all black school, black kid goes there, and maybe he's wearing some like off-brand Nikes or whatever. He's wearing some Psyches, right? Like, that kid is going to be made fun of by the people that look like him, right? Because that's just like the human condition.
Yeah, people figure out ways to separate themselves.
Right. People always other you, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can. So I don't understand. I don't understand where this opinion, like, how do you square this circle of an opinion? This person says you don't want segregation, but you're tired of living in a world where the amount of freedom that you experience is proportional to the amount of my culture and identity that I'm willing to surrender to whiteness. Now, look, that is something that we did not do. Like my parents, they kind of shielded me from this stuff, but nah, yo, they were not, you black. You black. Whatever
Right.
you don't, you black. Like I don't feel like I've ever surrendered my anything to whiteness. And look, this person is a woman, and there are a lot of, there are a lot of other factors there, right? Like
She's a black woman, by the way. So, like,
right.
just to give perspective. Yeah.
The standard of beauty, right? Like,
yeah,
that's surrendering your culture to whiteness. And that's, I admit that's something that
we don't experience.
I don't experience that.
Right.
Maybe if I had dreads and somebody made me cut them off, like, all right, I get that.
Right. That's like the closest dudes get. Right. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So I'm not devaluing this opinion. And I think I understand where it's coming from, but I don't think that I don't know. It's interesting, but for me myself personally, I don't feel I've ever had to do that. And it sucks for people who do have to do that, right? Because I imagine that some people do.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
So I'll kind of do what you did, which is kind of go through it. She says unintended consequences of integration is that a generation of black folks, multiple generations of black folks, are woefully miseducated and out of touch with the history and struggle. I agree with the second part. I don't agree necessarily that is the cause of it. Quote unquote integration, and I think fundamentally her point is that she doesn't agree with integration, and I understand that, and I actually agree with that. And it's not because I want segregation. I'm far from it, but rather integration, as it's often talked about outside of communities of color, or minority communities. I'll just say that anywhere in the world, right? Not just in the U.S., but it's often talked about as assimilation, which is not like you don't, like you hear a lot of times you'll hear, especially white conservatives talk a lot about like, you come to America, you're American, you're not a black American, you're not da da da. Like they want to wipe away everything that makes you as a unique person coming from the outside. And when you come to America, you scrap all that and you're gray and you just have an American stamp on it, right? Like that's what she's pushing back against, right? That idea of assimilation. And I agree with that, right? Like the idea of the United States being a melting pot is kind of, it's true in that is what happens, but it's not, things aren't melting equally together. It's that there's a whole lot of white people and a sprinkle of other people. So everything kind of turns mostly white, right? Culturally speaking, right?
Melting pots don't work if everybody don't melt and white people don't melt.
Right. Or if the proportions are off, right? Like that's right. You can't have 60% of one thing and 10% of this, 5% of this, and then, diminishing percentages, and then expect it all to come out equally in the wash. Like that literally is just not how things, like from a scientific standpoint, that's not how it works. And then from a cultural standpoint, that's not how it works. Right.
And from a cooking standpoint, it don't work.
Right.
That's why all of their food is bland.
Right. Like if you just put only salt, like what are you going to do? You can't just put all potatoes and 2 sprinkles of adobo and then hope it works. Like, no, you can put a little bit more. Come on. Cooking is a perfect analogy for this. So I understand that perspective and I actually agree with it. We have folks who, but I don't agree that people don't know their history because of integration. That's not why people don't know history. People don't know history because people don't read. Right? People are unbelievably willfully ignorant about a lot of things, right? Like,
especially nowadays, right? Like,
right. You have all human knowledge at your fingertips, and people just don't read anything. Like they just they take things for granted. They just assume things. They just believe anything that they hear. Like they don't actually go back and study things. And that to me is worrying, right? But we're all very busy, or some of us are very busy, and you have a million things going on. So you can understand why people don't. But that I think has way more to do with it than integration in and of itself. I think that seems like a weird point to me. I think you're giving people a lot of credit that you shouldn't. I think some people just don't do things because they just don't do them. She says, we have people disconnected from faith traditions of our ancestors and culture, and we have only ever experienced the white man's religion. Look, I'm not religious. I would argue I'm about as far from religious as you can get. I'm an atheist, but I did grow up religious, and I grew up Christian. Because I'm black, I grew up Baptist, right? Like you kind of don't have a choice, or some varying form of Baptist, like whatever. At least on the East Coast. But I find that statement to be hilarious, because what do you mean disconnected from faith traditions? Are you talking about black people in America? They're all disconnected from their faith traditions, because Christians are not black Christians are not practicing the religion of their people. They're practicing the religion of recent ancestors, right? Like it would be like my daughter growing up, marrying a dude or a woman, probably a dude just because of this analogy, a dude, and becoming Jewish. The faith of her, and then she has kids, the faith of her kids' ancestors isn't Judaism. like on my side, it's not. It would be, that's the faith of a recent revelation, right? And, slavery wasn't, not a billion years ago. So the idea that they're disconnected from faith traditions is a silly statement. Like integration has nothing to do with that. It has to do with slavery, which was not integration. It was the exact opposite of integration. So if you're talking about like separated from early black Christian faith in this country, I guess. Like I don't think that's what she means. It seems odd.
I've read that as people are disconnected from the faith traditions of
African religions.
Right.
Right. But that has nothing to do with integration. Again, slavery is not integration at all. Like that has to do with stealing a people and then using another religion as a form of subjugation, right? Like, period. Like, it has nothing to do with integration at all. And again, I think integration, she is using that as a as a drop-in word for assimilation, which they're similar, but they're not the same. Like, she has a problem with assimilation, which is fair. But I think she should use that word, not integration. I think it's easy to mix them up, but I don't think integration is the right word. And I'm not saying that like she's not smart enough to know the word. I'm just saying I think assimilation is a far better, more clear-cut word for what she seems to be talking about. So yeah, like the white man's religion, yeah, that's Christianity. Like it is, right? Like for the most part around the world, that's Christianity. So if you're talking about people should be more in touch with their African religion, religions, sure, I guess. I mean, again, I'm not religious, so I don't really have an opinion on one fairy tale or another. Like that's up to you.
All religion. Look, I don't know all religion. All religion is hinky. Like
they all are.
You gotta read the fine print on all of them.
Yeah, even Buddhism. People are like, "Oh, Buddhism is great." Like, they believe a lot of crazy shit too. They do. They all do. It's fine. It's not. Look, it's not. I wouldn't say fine, but it's all make believe. It's all make believe, guys. Like, from my perspective, it's all make believe. From other people's perspective, it's real. But they're all stories that are to teach you lessons, right? Like that's at the core of it. That's what they're supposed to teach you, to be a better person through whatever means and however you interpret that to being a better person, whatever. So I just found that statement to just be curious and just generally odd. As much as separate but equal is a failed project, I can't help but wonder if integration is also a failed project. yeah, Separate but Equal was a failed project, but I mean, it was broken from the start because it doesn't fundamentally make sense. Like, even saying separate but equal doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't. So, yeah, of course, it's a failed project. And I can't help if wondering if integration is a failed project. If you're talking about how black people were supposed to be treated in this country, then I guess I would posit the question: why did you really think that their white people, I'm speaking of, did you think that their notion of us integrating into society was an honest deal? It wasn't an honest deal.
It's about as honest as separate but equal. Right.
Like, they didn't do integration because they felt like, oh, now's the time. Blacks have earned their spot in the pantheon that is America. No, they were forced by law to do that. So it was not a social contract. It was not a social contract between black people and white people to say, all right, come on, guys. Yeah, we treated you like shit, but you're on the team now. Yeah, it's like it's not a fraternity, right? Like, they didn't treat us like garbage, and then like you made it past the threshold, and then like you're our brother. Like, that's not what the social contract was. So this idea that it's you kind of think that integration was a failed project. It was never meant to be successful. We were never like legitimately welcomed into the bosom of America. Like, that's a completely false telling of history. Like, it just is. And again, I'm not attacking her. I'm just talking about the concept here. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? And again, she doesn't agree, or she doesn't think that it worked, but I would argue it was never supposed to work. It was never supposed to work. At least separate but equal was supposed. They thought, hey, how about we do this separate but equal thing? like, we're not going to give you, we're going to keep your ass over there and then tell you that you're equal to us. We're going to give you different shit, but tell you that you're equal. That was exactly the plan. It failed because black people just didn't accept it. But integration was never designed to work. It was purposely designed to fail. So that part, again, I don't think that makes any sense to me. A lot of people get mad, yada, yada. I don't want segregation. That's clear. I mean, I think white people would take that as making arguments for segregation. I think any black person worth their salt would realize what you're talking about. You're talking about nuance here. Like, yeah. Right. But, common sense is not common to everybody. So I get why she had to write that, but I hate that we live in a world that she has to. I'm tired of living in a world where the amount of quote unquote freedom that I experience is proportional to the amount of my culture and identity I'm willing to surrender to whiteness. Like you said, her being a black woman, she's definitely experienced a perspective we haven't, right? Like, especially when it comes to what is considered beautiful and what is considered the right look for women, because women definitely have to deal with that, whatever color they are, and then put black women on top of that, and it's even worse. Excuse me. So yeah, I understand that, and a willingness to surrender to whiteness. I mean, but that goes back to the assimilation argument, right? Like, are you willing to give up your blackness or aspects of your blackness to fit in with America? I would argue some people are. I mean, I would argue that you watch black conservatives do it all the time, where they're willing to try to destroy their own people's culture and shit on it for money to please white people, and sometimes give up their lives. See Herman Cain this past week, right?
I think that last part though is how much of my the amount that I'm willing to sacrifice, right? Because you can't, the way this game is set up, we're behind the 8 ball, right?
Yeah,
so
always.
We can't, this isn't an episode of when keeping it real goes wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are certain things that people do.
Code switcher.
Right. Like, it's if you want to get ahead to try and make change, like, those are some of the things that you have to do, right? And I really get it. but at the same time, like there, I don't know, maybe there's got to be lines, right? Because
There's levels to this shit.
yeah, man, like that's why black conservatives are usually fucking dumb, because they are
Yes.
they are willing to give up all of it, right?
Right. To tap dance.
And right, and I know a few black conservatives, but they're still black, like these white people are tripping, right? and they're not always tap dancing,
Right.
and that's the line that we have to, as black people, that we have to kind of dance around if we want to play this game to win. And it's fucked up, man.
Yeah, I mean it is. Like the game is completely screwed. But I mean your point is valid, right? Like there is a game. There, the rules are set in the words of Terrence's favorite movie. The rules are set in opposition. Devil's advocate. But we are supposed to be quiet and docile and go with the flow. But we're also supposed to we also, in order to play the game and in order to quote unquote win the game or to get ahead in the game, we have to be vicious sometimes. And we have to be bold and we have to take massive risk knowing that we don't have the luxury of losing and coming back. That's a very rare thing for black people in this country. Like it really is. So, I mean, the idea of like failing upwards for black people is almost non-existent. I mean, we have a president who has done nothing but failed upwards, right? Like Barack Obama had to be perfect, right? Like in order to be president, like that's a perfect example. Right. But there are things that you have to play the game. I mean, I talked about in the last preview episode that when I had to go to court, I had to shave my beard so I didn't look intimidating. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But I did. And that's to play the game, right? Because I gotta do what I gotta do so that there are not cultural assumptions made about me, or there are less cultural assumptions made about me.
Now we all know that the game is rigged and we shouldn't have to play it, but is
not playing it means that you lose. Period.
Like
you lose. Like,
and that's what I wanted to get at, right? Like
right.
We have to, right? I mean, in order to get ahead, right? In order to get ahead, to try and make change, to try and do something, we have to be the spooks that sat by the door, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And
I think some people, and I get it, right? I truly understand the idea of, as a black person, being like, I'm not playing this game. Like, I completely understand it, and I don't begrudge anybody who has that stance. But what I would say is giving up certain things worth getting to your ultimate goal, right? Like, I don't believe that you make fundamental change to systems. I think you can rattle systems from the outside, but I think you can make fundamental changes from the inside, right? Meaning, like, what's going on with the protests for Black Lives Matter are rattling the system from the outside. And they are shaking some fucking trees, right? Like, they really are. Where people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Turns out we have to pay attention to these people, right? You can shake it. But to get long-lasting change, right? Because people can eventually stop paying attention. They can eventually ignore it.
People will tune you out.
Right. Right. You can... Right. You can only shake the outside of a fence for so long before people stop listening to the guy screaming outside the fence, right? Like, that's just a reality. But when you play the game, or when you have enough people, right? It doesn't have to be all of us, but enough of us playing the game that we start to get inside of systems that are set up against us, then you can break and change those systems for good, right? You can change laws. You can change outcomes. Like, where you can fundamentally have people working on the outside to rattle the system loose a little bit so more people can get on the inside and make change. Like, that is why, like, voting to me for black people means so much. And I get so incredibly angry when people talk about not voting, because
Right.
that is fundamentally changing the system from the inside. And if you are only on the outside, you will never get anywhere. There's a reason why rattling the cage on the outside was what John Lewis did when he was in his 20s. And he died as a goddamn congressman because he got into the inside and was able to make fundamental changes to the system there. You have to be able to work on both sides.
That is literally the perfect analogy for what we're doing, what we're talking about. Before someone on YouTube starts typing respectability politics, no, nigga, it's not.
It's not. It's not.
It's
I'm not talking about wearing a suit. You don't have to. You don't have to, but
Right.
you can rattle cages on the outside. Look, a huge Black Lives Matter activist just won a primary last night. Like, this is a woman in the streets fighting. But when you get that opportunity, when you see that little opening, you go for it. Because you cannot, again, you can shake that cage as much as you want from the outside, and they will go, whoa, okay, you're making a lot of noise. And then eventually it's like, he's still making noise. Like, and they just turn off. They turn off. You can't ignore somebody changing laws, dude. Like, you can't.
Right.
Fundamentally, you cannot. And that matters. It matters a lot. So, yeah, Lewis is a super perfect example. Like, look, Martin Luther King died too early, right? This is like mid-30s, right? He was young. I don't doubt that if he had lived as long as Lewis had lived, I guarantee you he would have gotten into politics. I'm sure he would have. Can you imagine? Martin Luther King was like a little bit older than John Lewis, I think, at the like, like in age. Like, they could have been two world-renowned congressmen or senators or whatever for decades. Like, that stuff matters. There's a reason why having people like Stacey Abrams working on the outside, trying to get into the inside matters. Like, it matters. It matters a lot. So this idea of integration and assimilation and stuff like that, those are really interesting topics. And I'm glad she actually wrote this. This is good. But I think that assimilation is the thing you want to avoid, right? You do not want to give up your blackness or your Latino-ness or, whatever, right? You don't want to give up those things in order to be an American, in order to get proper treatment under the law, right? And nor should you have to. But if you want to make fundamental change, you have to move the system from the outside and the inside. You have to. So in a way, you have to have integration, but not in the way that she's talking about, right? Like, you have to get into the system so that you can fundamentally break it. Can't break it otherwise.
Yeah. My problem with this is that the way I'm reading this is this person's view on integration is like placing, is like 2 or 3 parents getting together and then making their kids have fun, right? Like,
right.
All right, go play with this. This is your friend now. Like, I don't know this person.
Right.
Like, what?
He likes baseball. Like, you have balls. I don't know. Get in there.
Right. Like, and it doesn't, and yeah, like, that doesn't necessarily work. But yeah, I think you're right in that most people, I'm reading the comments here under this post, and a lot of people are saying the same thing. Like, the problem is that integration usually leads to assimilation, or, people think integration is assimilation and assimilation doesn't work. Someone poses the melting pot theory versus the salad bowl theory.
Yeah, because the salad bowl, everybody, all the parts, even though you mix them up, the parts are all still there. Right? That makes sense. Okay. And the melting pot is just like, everything is just mush, right? Like, and things are just overtaken and never seen again.
Yeah.
Like, how much, like, Native Americans are a part of this country. How much Native American culture is anywhere? It's not. It's destroyed, right? It's destroyed.
It's made fun of.
Yeah.
It's made fun of and turned into like big-eyed mascots and
a white man painted brown crying about someone littering, right? Like, it's just it's a joke. Like, it's Native Americans are not taken seriously as any level of a people at all, which is really disgusting. So
Yeah, I've seen white men at football games
chill.
with faces literally painted red.
Yeah, I'm respecting the culture. I'm respecting them. Like, wow, really? Man, I guess. Look,
man.
then they should name the Washington football team. They should name them the Washington like I don't know, like the Washington Crackers or some shit like that, and just have like a white guy as a mascot and see if they like it. I bet they wouldn't.
Yeah, name them the Honkies.
Yeah, the Washington Honkies. That sounds great. Here comes the Washington Honkies. They'll be playing the Ohio O-Phase at the World Series. Like, yeah, you wouldn't like it. You would hate it. You would hate it. Like, come on. It's the Washington Whitebreads. Like, yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be made fun of. Like, they don't like it. It's shit's unacceptable. Yeah. So I think it's a proposed scenario or thought process that I think is interesting. But yeah, look, black people should not have to assimilate in order to belong and to be treated equally, nor should any other group, right? Certainly white people do not assimilate when they go to other countries, ever. That is not a thing.
They speak English loudly.
Well, that's how you just got to get these foreigners to know what you're talking about. Like, I'm foreign, I'm not deaf. And you're in my country, you asshole. Like, what the fuck? That's one of the most obnoxious things Americans do. It's true.
People in France.
Bathroom.
Shit, man.
They hate it.
France fucking hate it, dude.
Yeah, they hate it.
They will.
They speak English. They act like they don't.
Right. They speak it. Right. It's right there.
They're like, nah, I don't know none of that.
Right away. But yeah, you're like, if you at least try, they'll take pity on you.
Yeah, you got to try when you're in someone else's country, man.
Yeah, I went to Montreal and someone asked me if I was buying something, and somebody asked me if I wanted. The cashier asked me if I wanted a bag, but she said it in French, and she said it so fast I couldn't understand it. And then she looked at me and sighed and was like, "Do you want a bag?" I was like, "Oh damn!" Like I'm that guy. Like I
bago. Right? You just add an O to the end of words when you go to a foreign country, and they'll figure it out, right?
You had an L in front of it and an O at the
right.
back of it.
El Bago. That's hello. I'm from America. Why don't you understand? I will never forget. I was in. My wife and I were in Chile, and it's all Spanish all the time. And we went to like a coffee shop, and I guess the woman was like asking me something about change, and I was just like, you got me. Like, I didn't know anything. And she just pointed at the register. I was like, oh God. Like, I didn't know. I was like, I did not add an O to the end of my words. I was being respectful. I wanted to, because I felt like she probably could have understood if I spoke loud enough. But yeah, so it is what it is. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting, sort of thought experiment. So yeah, and let us know in the comments on YouTube, or in the comments on our Facebook page, or the comments in the fan group when you guys see it. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Is integration, assimilation? Like, how do you see that? How do you get black people into the American system properly? Right? Because wishing and hoping ain't gonna work. Like, it's just not.
Yeah, I mean, like we need people to be mad, but at the same time, like, some of those people that are mad gotta like do something.
Yeah, you gotta be productive. I mean, look, people out on the streets, they're being productive. Like, they're doing something.
Yeah.
But you gotta have people in the streets, and also, making change internally as well. Like, that's important. All right, that is it for this preview episode. Again, you can just do a search on YouTube for Panther full movie. You'll be able to find Panther. And we will get into that next week. I'm very interested to watch. I've watched many a documentary about the Black Panthers. I'm very interested to watch a narrative film about them, to see how that's going to go. By the way, what's name is doing a narrative film on the Black Panthers as well. Lakeith Stanfield is playing Fred Hampton, I believe, which will be interesting. Done by what's his name? Who did Black Panther? The director. Drawn,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm drawing a complete
Ryan
blank.
Coogler.
Yeah,
Ryan
Ryan Coogler. Right. So yeah, that should be interesting too. So this may be a good primer for seeing how that movie might shake out as well. All right, guys, we will see you guys next week.
See you.
Bye. You're watching the Black on Black Cinema YouTube channel. Make sure you check out our full reviews of Black movies, past and present. And every other week, we do a preview episode where we talk about a random topic that affects the Black community.